AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions.
And welcome everybody to our show. So it's been a couple weeks. My fault that we've had to postpone it a couple weeks here, getting bills paid. But I asked Tony if he's around today, and he had some time, so we're back at it to answer gun questions again on Saturday. So let's take a second and see what's happening, what's going on with Tony. What's been going on your side of the internet?
Just busy. Busy. Had the diversity shoot coming up next week. Had one 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. I forget which. That was fun. That was our second one at Gun for Hire. This would be a Union Hill Gun Club. Hopefully, I was speaking to somebody, and we're going to work on. I might be doing a speaking engagement at a convention. So let's see how that goes. I don't want to freaking jinx it, but let's see if we can get some funding from them to get me to frig there. I mean, it's great and all to have opportunities, but kind of sucks if you have to pay for them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, guess what? Here's a chance to do something. Then all you got to do is get here and take time away.
Yeah, get here, take time off of work, and pay for it yourself. Got you. And again, sometimes it's worth that, but we'll see. We'll see. So that's what I'm working on. And I finally have girded myself up. So once the funds hit the bank account, I can go ahead and do the 501c3. I'm out of delays, and I'm about to go to Train and Learn. And I promised I was going to kick it off before at last year's Train and Learn. And I don't really want to walk in the door this year and not have at least started it. So shame works, embarrassment works to get me to do what I'm supposed to do. And I'm out of excuses. Everybody knows I can do this except me. And that's annoying. But that's what's going on with me. I think I'm on the brink of kicking something off that's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to do it. I'm excited about it and nervous at the same time.
Yeah, I hear that, dude. It's always frustrating when you're juggling a bunch of things, because then things get dropped, and it's not always possible. It's not like you're got one thing you're juggling, and when you drop it, you're just not paying attention. But when you've got a lot of stuff you're keeping your attention busy, then when something happens, it gets frustrating. Anyhow, let's not doing well. I'm trying to talk and look for Brooke's show here. I know she has a suicide prevention Saturday set up, and I didn't connect them before the show, so I'm trying to do that as we talk here. I guess what I was trying to say. Guess what I'm trying to say is it's our show where we answer gun questions. So people that are watching live, feel free to ask questions. We can answer them. But it's also May the 4th, and that's traditionally the Star Wars holiday. You celebrate the May the 4th?
Oh, definitely. I celebrate, and I freaking make a birthday cake to Dr. Spock, and I do all that. May the 4th be with you. No, I'm just joking. I know somebody's backing their head into a wall right now. No, I don't really. No, not at all.
No,
Like there's parts of it. Nah, it's just parts of it I thought were cool as a kid. I mean, obviously it was an awesome movie, especially for the time. But in my opinion, they've effed it up and effed up the feeling I've had about it since I was a kid. Like I was excited about Star Wars, and they pooped all over that with every movie after the original ones. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't care.
I get that. I liked
I'm like,
it a
you
lot,
took something that
and
was
then I liked
it
it
was
less
like,
and less and less and less as it's gone on.
yeah, it's like you took something that was awesome and special because they weren't a lot of blockbuster movies in the 70s and the 80s, really. Not for real,
Not
not
that
across
way.
all.
Not that, yeah, exactly. That appealed to everybody. You have a blockbuster for this sector or that segment or whatever, like this
hmm
interest group or whatever. But yeah, something that was so widespread, and then across the country or the world too.
Around the world, and then you just what is about a third one when you were making aliens just so you could sell the toy.
Right.
They kind of started corrupting it, and then the legacy and the da da da, and it just got to the point. It's like I don't even want to be a part of this. It came kind of like a lot of the Marvel is now. It's
Well, it
like
led
these
the
are
way in
stuff
a
we
lot of
should.
ways, but then it also led the way in that part, right? Like in how it fell apart or how it failed. Like it led the way up, but then it also by I think necessity or unless it just stays there up forever, it's going to also lead being one of the first things to fall. And it fell through like you're saying, just well, hindsight's 2020 or whatever. But they made a bunch of weird decisions and stuff along the way, and that was I think wasn't it the second one with Ewoks? As soon as the Ewoks were in there, I was like, nope, I'm over this already. They're selling toys,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was a kid
Soon as
still.
whatever. Yeah, yeah. As
I
soon
just
as
didn't
the
want
Ewoks
stuffed
was
animals.
branched off, it was like, dude, no. And it sucks because I'd love to have that feeling back of a good franchise of something you go, man, I can't wait for that to come out and see the next iteration of it.
Well, I'm gonna say I still have that. Like I'll even I don't know if you watch the like on Disney. There's the TV shows now. So like there's Boba Fett or whatever, and okay, I don't know them all by name, but there's a bunch of the movies that are out now, and those are fun. They're like watching a movie, right? Except that they're TV shows. So I mean, I kind of like them, but I don't know. There's at least the good thing is there's so many of them that they strike out, but every once in a while they do something good, and it's essentially free to watch them. So, but I could totally
Yeah.
understand people that get frustrated and don't even bother because there are movies. But after all, they're not anything more than that. And
Hmm.
yeah, if they're not your cup of tea, then yeah, I mean, there's plenty of movies that I don't watch.
Plus, we have, I mean, it's funny because in the 70s, 80s, 90s, if you didn't watch the new movie come out or watch television, what are you doing? But now you have movies, television, you have, computer, you have YouTube, you have this, you have that, you have various forms of entertainment. But back in the day, we only had a couple, to go out and socially see something.
Well, the other part of Star Wars that beyond the movies was you, like you said, you saw the movie and then that was it. Unless you were rich or something, you could watch the movie every day. You'd still, you're paying real money to watch that movie every single time. And to some extent, you had to wait in line, for a while to watch it. So you weren't going to see it but once. And everybody saw it, right? And we all knew what it was like to watch something once and try to remember it all because we all had to do that, right? There was nothing. There was no, except for reruns, there was nothing. You'd see something once ever, right? As far as movies and
Hmm.
stuff like that. I think the very classic movies, they would come back once in a while and rerun them at a movie theater, but like Snow White, like very few movies that I can think of like that. But anyhow,
Yeah, they do a
um,
matinee.
the whole other part of Star Wars back in the day was we didn't have video games, or if we did, it wasn't the same as today. They were just like a baseball, the difference between baseball and hockey or something like you were both, you were either playing a video game when you were sick or you were outside, but nobody went inside to play a video game ever, at least back in the
Hmm.
old days. So what I'm getting at is the Star Wars figures were that community thing because everybody would have the Star Wars figures they liked, and then the ships or whatever. Nobody could afford all of it, and then you go to school. At least for us, you'd go to school and find a sandbox or some place that you're gonna play in, and then you figured out what you were gonna play by what everybody's stuff was. And I think that was one of those universal things. You could be at the doctor's office or something, and there's some kid with a Star Wars figure, and you got your Star Wars figure. Now you're playing. Uh, and I imagine at some point it got a little bit mixed because there was more than Star Wars figures after a while. But you know what I mean? Like I think that kids just played with each other back in the day. Like you're the same age, go play with each other. You're obviously friends. You're the same age, right? Like
Yeah.
that was the way it was. So those let you do that without you weren't going to bring like a baseball everywhere. And if you did, you couldn't play with a baseball everywhere. You couldn't play sports or anything. So you could play with those kind of toys. And they were pretty cool compared to the toys our parents and grandparents had. They had like wood and metal things. We had these cool painted
Look, a
wood.
hobby horse.
Yeah. Ow, my toy bit me or hurt me. Like, okay, so we got a real question here from Woods, but it is May 4th. And like I say, I like Star Wars. Like I said, I don't like them all. I like some of them a lot, and I like some of them very little. And every once in a while, I'll get well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Maybe a couple of times I've sat there and watched all of them in order just to do it. So I'm definitely fluent in Star Wars, I think. But so if people got Star Wars questions, feel free to throw them out. Otherwise, here's a real question from Woods. Gun question. Why did 10 gauge fall out of favor? Why 12 and not 10? I think I've heard this before. Have you heard the stories before? Or have you,
Of the why?
yeah, why it went to got the hiccups. Why it
No,
went to 12 and not to 10?
I have no idea. As an NRA certified instructor, they never told me this one. I mean, I have a feeling about human nature and the fact that I've shot 10 gauges and 12 gauges. But why?
10 does kick a bit more. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I do feel like I've heard that story before. And I think it was, I've been doing a lot of live chats over the years. I'm pretty sure we were in a live chat and it came up, and then I don't may know if I researched it, but I think somebody did and then brought up a video, and I think we kind of a bunch of people watched a video and we're all like,
wow.
okay. So it had something to do with birds, and it had something to do with the whole point where these things come from is like that's 12 whatever bullets or 12 shot in a pound or something. Like it has to do with that, and it had something to do with like it was just easier to carry, or it was easier to count or something. Like 10 was awkward and 8 was awkward, but 12, or what is it, 14 and 10 were both awkward, but 12 was it was easier to do dozens of, or it was easier to do tens of or something. But
I just looked at the different load, the different recoil, the weight of the firearm. I mean, there's a significant difference between the 10 and the 12.
As far as like it has to have more metal in order to hold the power of the 10. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, what am I getting? How much bang am I getting for that buck? I mean, because I mean, it's almost like a punt gun when you get to the point that it's this big gun with the recoil, and how many birds are you going to down at once? Because that's what I'm thinking it was for mostly upland birds or waterfowl, whatever. I'm just assuming it was because of the size and the recoil. Like 10 millimeter died out relatively quickly because, well, how powerful does it have to be to do the job? And if it's too powerful, people won't use it. People won't buy it. People won't practice with it.
That's the thing, how heavy it is just to lug around and exist, and then how much abuse it gives you just practicing or even using it at all. Like even if it, like turkey loads, 3.5-inch loads out of a shotgun, even if you're hunting, you don't want to shoot that. Like you got to think twice if you really want to eat turkey that bad. Like that thing kicks. And 10 gauge is the same way, right? Like it's really, you're getting hit by that thing.
Well, that was one of the tests my partner came up with, which was hilarious. Of course, we thought it was hilarious. As instructors, we'd instruct the class and we'd bring 12 gauges if someone didn't have one, and they'd shoot the NRA qualifications. We'd go all through the class. We'd tell them how to hold a shotgun, get behind it, solid cheek well, solid shoulder, get your face on it, follow through. And then at the end, after they were shooting, it was going, this is to find out if you're cheating and not listening to us. We're going to toss a clay and you're going to shoot this 10 gauge single shot H&R. And there should be no difference in how you handle this unless you're not doing what we tell you. And we'd walk them through it again. And the people that didn't listen had that 10 gauge wallop them. And we're like, we're not joking. You can fake it with a 12 gauge when you're shooting birdshot at clays, but you can't fake it with a 10 gauge when you're shooting birdshot at clays. I made them pay attention. We did it with guys, though. We didn't do it with ladies because whatever. Guys will appreciate it, especially when they look at a single shot to a 10 gauge. It looks like the Holland Tunnel.
I think then too, I would have said, how much I say this? I think there's a bigger question, or for me, it's a bigger question. Why 12 instead of 14, for example? And 10, you're right. Like it's abusive, but 14 isn't that much different than 12. And I mean, technically it's not that. Is it 16 I'm thinking of? Whatever the intermediate was, and we don't really use that much at all. Yeah, between 20 and 12, sorry, 16 gauge. Why that one didn't get picked. And I'm guessing it has something to do with maybe like something I haven't hunted, like, I don't know, duck or something, that goose or something like that's big and far away, where, like the 16 just wasn't cutting it. It was never going to work for, like, let's say goose or big ducks or something. And maybe even just squirrels through trees, like you can pretty much with a 12 gauge, you can do damage to a squirrel where you're not going to eat it, but you can get a squirrel, like, up in a tree or whatever, at least in my experience, where, with a 16, maybe it was just too frustrating for people. Like they're not able to reach far enough or get big enough critters that, it's not an all around gun anymore. Now it's just like a 22. It's good for some things, because the
I mean,
20s, you don't really see people hunting ducks, or I guess turkeys. I was going to say turkeys, but I don't really know, but I'm assuming ducks. People don't shoot them with 20s.
nope, because I think payload and everything else when it comes to depends on the game. I think that's what made things fall out because I've heard people call 16 gauge like this awesome sweet spot, but it's like, yeah, but where's everyone using it? I mean, I got a feeling like 16 gauge is somewhat like different calibers and handguns and other things that have like it makes sense on paper, like 41 Magnum makes sense on paper. In the time of 357 Magnum and 44, 41 Magnum seemed like a smart uh what not Cinderella. What is the little Goldilocks? Seems like a Goldilocks load, but somehow it didn't take off commercially. I'm like, 16 gauge was out there, it was running along, and then it's not there anymore.
When you say on paper, I was listening to an interview the other day, and this youngin, I'll just say youngin, was like blah blah blah, and then if I had to take a carbine or a rifle, it would be a M1 carbine, and for this and this reasons. And I'm like, really? Like anybody I ever known that had to carry one immediately didn't want to carry it anymore. Would rather carry any other gun besides it. And everyone I've
M1
ever had,
carbine or M1 Garand?
carbine, the little one, and they
Okay.
run finicky, and like the people that I knew and that were old, like the grandparents' age, they didn't really like them. They didn't respect them. They liked the Grands. They liked the Springfields. Those were kind of the ones people chose, and then the carbine just never whatever. And then there was so many fake ones, like so many aftermarket ones
Mm-hmm.
that didn't run well, that it just got
Mm-hmm.
such a bad rap. And then they got really expensive and nobody shoots them anymore. So I suspect, what we're seeing now is people that have a good one, a specimen one, and it runs fine. But, all those ones that were mediocre are just sitting on shelves because they don't have 30 caliber ammo, and they don't
Yeah.
feel like shooting some grandpa's gun. But anyway, so I think that on paper thing can get us, like, when we look at all these numbers and things, because there's just the reality, and um, whatever you call it takes effect. And just because something looks cool or it seems like it should work cool doesn't mean its magazine works. Doesn't mean that whoever engineered the clever gun also engineered a clever magazine that feeds the gun. I'm thinking of that 45 gun.
The,
That
the M1
street.
carbine worked out well. The M1 carbine worked out well in 1940s. They also understood that the magazines were disposable. So I was listening to Ken Hackathorn talk about it because he, has the M1s and he loves them or loved them. And he was like, yeah, when you got the ammo for these, it come preloaded in the mags already. So it's not even like you loaded up mags like you do with an AR. You know what I mean? Or even an M16 with the stripper clips and you load up your mags. You got brand new mags every time you got a shipment of ammo. So they didn't have the magazine problems because the mags were new. The guns were new. But their idea of reliability was different than our idea of reliability today.
That's
Our
a good point.
idea of reliability today is 100%. It wasn't back then. They understood that sometimes these things didn't work and they'd be finicky and you'd have to play with them. We don't accept that now. So when I hear a lot of younger people talk about how awesome the 30 cal or the M1 would be, I'm like, yeah, if we had ammo available like we did before, but if the ammo is just as expensive or more expensive than 5.56, why on earth would I ever use it? The gun, sorry, but the difference between a 5 pound M1 carbine and learning how to run that, or just naturally picking up a 6 or 7 pound, or maybe even a 5 pound AR, I would take the AR at this point. I have mags that are cheaper, ammo is cheaper, accessories that are available, and I'm sorry, but the M1 carbine is dated. It hasn't been kept up in the last 60 years. I mean, because the funny part
Well,
is the M1 carbine is only about 15 years older than the AR-15 initial design, but it's been updated continually, the AR-15 M16 family.
that's a good point. You don't really think about it, but yeah, the M16 is essentially our grandparents' gun.
1963, man.
Yeah, it's technically our parents' gun, but you know, parents being born, grandparents are using it at the time when it was being
Hmm.
introduced.
Yep.
But otherwise, that's a good question about the 12 and the 10. I think it probably mixes in with competitions, hunting, and not defense until way later. But I think, like I said, I'm pretty sure I have seen something, and there might be something out there that's prepared on it,
Oh, I
or
love
that
it. I
like
love to
covered it
see that.
already.
Yeah, my inner nerd would like to know, like, was there a reason behind the drop off? um, Plus
Wow,
defensive use of a shotgun, like having a shotgun just set up for defensive use is, I feel, something new. I mean, no, wait a minute. No, they had coach guns also. So no, I'm talking about light. Yeah, they had coach guns, and pretty much the 1897 was actually used by militaries in the late 1800s, and definitely in the early 1900s. So I guess I'm wrong.
Woods is mixing up the Star Treks and the wars. But he
I do
says, "What
that.
if a stormtrooper shoots at a red shirt? What would happen?" And that's I don't know, because the red shirts are there to die, and the stormtroopers are there to miss.
Yeah,
It's a good question.
I gave my answer. The gunfight will last until the batteries ran dead in the freaking blasters.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, that's a good point. I was going to say it's probably something like if you strapped a piece of toast to a cat or whatever and did it the wrong way so that it could never land. You know, instead of always landing one way, it would never land. It would just spin.
Just jumps infinity.
GI Joe. Yep, I hear that.
Big time.
Well, the thing was, we had Star Wars figures, and they were okay for a while, and then their legs were stiff and their arms were stiff, so they were okay, but you couldn't do everything with them. They were just like compared to what was coming, they were okay. But then GI Joes were the first ones that had elbows and knees. But
Hmm.
then not only did they have elbows and knees, I was getting a little bit older, so I wasn't really as much into worrying about toys anymore. But that was pretty cool that they had elbows and knees. But then they were just regular GI Joe stuff. Like it was not space; it was regular whatever. They had a motorcycle and a jeep, and
Hey, don't
you could
forget.
play war or something if you wanted, but you'd also just be like, hey, here's some guy with a jeep. He happens to be wearing jungle clothes or whatever, but it's just some guy driving around in like Indiana Jones or one of those kind of movies. You could do any kind of plan you wanted with uh, GI Joes a little bit more than with everything had to be in a space and all kinds of
Hmm.
aliens and stuff. But it's not. There
Yeah,
is
for
no GI
some
Joe
reason
day,
it
is
seems.
there?
What was that?
I don't think there is a GI Joe day like there's a Star Wars holiday like that.
Oh no, no, there's not a GI Joe. At least I don't know about it, but who knows? There might be.
Yeah, there could be.
But yeah, I was way more GI Joe dude. GI Joe kid. I had the comic books. I had the freaking toys. I never had the vehicles though. Wait a minute. Yeah, we might have had one or two, but we didn't have a lot of.
I had the motorcycle, and then a friend of mine had the jeep, and then I think we always wanted the tank, but nobody I knew ever had a tank. But I think you're
I
a little
think
bit
I
younger
had
than
the.
me, right? Or wait, anyway, there
No,
were.
we're the same age.
Yeah, okay. So as I say, there were. I remember being just old enough to where I was like, "Do I really want a toy anymore?" But damn, these are cool toys. So I remember getting the motorcycle one and being pretty much satisfied. Okay, I'm done. I've got one.
Yeah, the motorcycle with the Gatling gun on the side, right? The rock and roll was on. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love these things, dude. They were a lot of fun, and everybody always wanted the aircraft carrier, but I knew There was no way in hell my mom was going to buy that thing.
Oh, no way. I mean, that was the kind of thing that you'd see at the mall, and then
Yeah,
maybe some rich kid had it somewhere, but I think those are just for the
yeah,
stores.
yeah. That was some silver spoons, Ricky Schroeder crap right there. You ain't getting that. Nice Woods had the helicopter with Wild Bill.
Yeah, and now I'm thinking about it, though, and then there was the airplane too, and then I think some of the
Hmm.
Cobra stuff was kind of dumb, but I liked the Cobra bad guys, the dudes, look at,
Yeah.
different from stormtroopers or whatever. Okay, so he's saying I have a 16 bolt action 16 for deer, and that's where I think a lot of people do the 16 with slugs for whatever, deers and that kind of
Hmm.
thing.
That's cool.
All right, and then oh no, here's a question from earlier. So if anybody else has questions, feel free to ask them. That's what we're here for. We do have a database. I'll go look at it here at some point. I haven't even opened it yet, but when people ask questions to the website, it just goes into a spreadsheet. I'll go look at that. Excuse me, but Woods has real questions here. So this one is a new question. I have students write about 2064. So 40 years from now, what advanced guns will they have by then?
Advanced guns? I don't think they'll have any advanced guns by then, unless there's something that comes along. Because 40 years ago we have exactly what 100 years ago we have exactly what we have now. If if what's his name? Wow, brain fart. John Browning walked into a gun shop today. It's not like he'd be blown away by the operating systems of anything there. He'd be like, "Where's my effing check?" It's like all these people owe me money. Um, and I don't think unless something else comes along as a propellant or somehow there's lasers or something else like plasma guns become something. I think everything we see will be recognizable. I think we'll have optics change up and electronics around the firearm change up. But unless something changes, I'm still thinking there's going to be lead, brass, and gunpowder and a recoil operating system. I believe we'll have a lot of advances in electronics because they're advancing all the time. They're becoming less expensive. And I mean, they're becoming what do you call that? Like Holosun now has something. What was that thing that reads heat? It's a thermal
Weird.
that goes on top of your rifle and it doesn't take up the whole thing. It's like a normal size. It's a little large, but that's it. I think those are the advances we're gonna have.
I don't know what happened. I glitched there. Sorry, I missed that last part. You were saying you think the differences will be in like accessories or
Accessories, optics, and electronics. I think those would be the big things, but I still think will be nothing will be changed. About propellants and projectiles.
going in that direction. Do you remember maybe 3 years ago, maybe it shot, maybe I can't remember if it was like 2 or 4 or 3 years ago. They had an optic or a scope, and I think it was part of the gun, but it might not have been. It was
Hmm.
pretty big and it was on the rifle side, and I think the deal was you could click onto something and then it
Hmm.
would know the target and then it would just fire when it could, like when it decided it was ready to fire, but you'd
Yep,
lock it
we
on.
actually
You
talked
think,
about it. Uh,
okay, do you think that'll in 40 years, like that'll be like a red dot optic where everybody's like, oh, you don't have tracking?
yeah, I think. Whoa, you almost got the name of it too. Something track
Yeah, it was like
was
the
the name
something
of it.
tracker or something. Yeah.
So we actually discussed that when it came out because it was really expensive. It was like $25,000 or something like that.
Right.
And then they took the technology from that and they came back out with it and were able to do it less expensive but with less options. So yeah, as time goes along, something like that'll be a thing. But I think when you get to the point that all you have to do is put the crosshairs on, and when the solution is correct, the little light goes off and you pull the trigger. I think when we get to that point, we'll just have more nostalgia kick in and it roll back. You know what I mean? Because people still want to pull the trigger. They still want to be in charge of when they pull the trigger. They still want to test their skill set. So I think that technology will be there for military and other applications, but for sporting applications, we'll be back to doing what we do now and testing our skills because that's what humans have always done.
I'm thinking we'll have some sort of, the way people bring out chronographs now, put them on a tripod and stick them downrange.
Hmm.
Probably something like a floating drone. It's something that just counterbalances gravity and just floats out there inexpensively to give you like super real time data on wind and temperature and whatnot. And probably sync right to your optic and give you some sort of, if you wanted to shoot it leading, shoot this way, and if you wanted to wait till it stops, get ready to shoot this trout, this path, and you'll see some sort of bendy glow stick looking thing in your optic, and you'll just choose your path like you're choosing a route on Google Maps or something. But I could see
I
that.
believe you're 100% right because you can see that in actual air gun competitions. If you ever watch the air gun competitions in Europe, well, we have them here now. One of the big ones I saw is in Arizona, and they tie streamers up all along the course because depends on the pellet they're using. They use like 22s. It can be really affected by the wind, so you have to get that wind call right.
Yep.
So
Like, are
to
you
have it
shooting through
be
like a
like
little curtain of wind? Are you shooting through like a big wave of wind? Is the wind going straight at you? Is it going with you? Like it pulling your bullet? Like, yeah.
how far away, how far away, because the further it is away, the more effect that wind will have on the round, the projectile. I actually watched those, and it is pretty freaking cool because I'm a dork, but
Well, and it's
I like
essentially like a
those.
miniature version of long distance, like real long
Yep.
distance, right?
Hmm.
'Cause it's all the same factors, just in 25 yards instead of
Hmm.
200,000 yards or 2,000.
100%. It's like I don't need binoculars, and you see the mirage as you're trying to see the target at 1,000 yards. It's like no, this is in 100 meters, and they're very small targets.
Well, so the original question, though, going back to the original question is 40 years from now, will they advance? I think that we've got a possibility, if not a probability, to get rid of the NFA. I think the NFA was fairly restrictive compared to other federal level laws. And either it exists and they say, well, because of it, we can deny all kinds of other rights that are guaranteed, or I think more likely through awareness and all the things that are good, people will calm their jets about the gun hype, because that's all bullshit anyway. And I think we will see the end of the NFA. And when that happens, and then here's something else I keep saying, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't see any reason why I am yet, because there's nothing to indicate one way or the other. So I'm not saying I'm 100% right about this, but I think there's a potential. We have the greatest generation still. Wait, yeah, the great, isn't it the great? No, is it the whatever on the baby boomers? We have the baby boomers aging out, and as they age out, they're going to want stuff just like they've always wanted stuff since they've been born, and they're going to want their rights. And as soon as they think, with all, especially with all the 3D stuff now, but when they hear of or think of, oh, I don't know, something like that 22, the ounce, the one that holds the 10 rounds kind of perpendicular, and then it drops in, like that was a completely unique gun made in
Hmm.
Oregon, right? Or Washington State. And then the Altor, everybody hates the Altor, but that's an amazing concept of changing a gun so that it's not scary to people who are adverse to it, but still giving them the confidence and the deterrence. So as we see things like those, think of the Chicago style pistol, that round thing that held
Hmm.
bullets like in a pinwheel, and you would squeeze it like a staple gun, and it would a barrel would protrude between your fingers. But think of like a
Hmm.
brass knuckles or something. So I think as old people with all kinds of issues with their muscles and their grip strength and their dexterity and everything else, I think that they're going to want options, and then 3D printing is going to offer those options either themselves in their own little workshops. They're going to go, you know what, my hand is shaped like this and I want something like this. So the same way that a SIG has an internal, what's that thing called, like the internal piece that is the serialized part,
FCU.
you, that, yeah, fire control unit, and then you
Hmm.
wrap, a small grip, a big grip, a grip for your grip angle or whatever. You wrap it around the same way, like, okay, my hand is kind of curled up, or my hand has swollen, or my hand, I can't, I don't have that strength there, but I do have it in my palm. and they'll come up with the same way we come up with prosthetics. I think with the end of an NFA, we'll see that. So I think that we have the potential to see all kinds of organic-ish things that can defend people. But as far as what you were saying, as far as projectiles and stuff, I think I was trying to say before I got kicked off there that I think of like an LED technology and like a mag light. Back when we were young kids or whatever, a mag light was ultimate. It had a xenon bulb. Holy moly, a xenon bulb! Like that was the biggest deal in the world. And we had alkaline batteries. Like, oh, we thought that was amazing because you could power these crazy bulbs and get so much light. And then 5 minutes later, they invented LED, and we totally forgot about xenon and all that, right? And I think that we're going to see something like that potentially, because right now there's a stifle because there's no race, right? There's no innovation because there's no need for it, or no perceived need for it. But I think the 3D printing arena shows that anytime there's an ability to be creative, and there's people that are motivated by boredom or interest or just trying to be the first to do something, I think we're going to see differences in, I don't even know, as if I knew I'd know, but magnetism or different types of chemical reactions. But I think the same way we saw it jump from xenon bulbs to, or I should say from regular to xenon, that was a big deal. Those were super bright bulbs for being the same size as a regular bulb and being powered off of batteries. But then to LED was like magic. That was like UFOs and stuff. So I think, the same way from like buckles to Velcro, that's amazing. And there's like, I live in a world of Velcro. My grandpa never heard of Velcro. That's like alien tech to him, Like, can you imagine having to do everything with leather buckles your whole life? Okay, I'll shut up.
We'll be here 40 years from now. We'll do the show and we'll find out who's right. But right now, yeah, I'm just seeing the advancement in accessories. Uh, but yes, I believe you're 100% right. I still think we'll still be using the same cartridge and powder burning things, but it may be, especially with the death of the NFA, that people will be able to produce these things at home, almost like almost like the machine in Star Trek. You'll synthesize your gun, the options you want. You'll download it online just like you do with Gun Builder, and you could probably build the basic thing you want. You might pay for it or however the heck that goes, but boom, it's yours. You have it. Now let's go get some ammo for it and buy some accessories for it. Get busy with it. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen a lot of this stuff. What was the name of the company? Was it CT? Was it Crimson Trace that came up with Bluetooth flashlights for their freaking AR? Weapons mounted lights. They had Bluetooth for them. They
I
killed
guess
it rather quickly. It died rather quickly. But yeah, they had Bluetooth.
Oh no, you mean because the battery? No, it wasn't Bluetooth power. It was just a Bluetooth switch. You mean?
It was a Bluetooth switch, so you didn't have to have any wire control.
Yeah, because the AR, the thing is way up there, and your thing's way back here, and you don't want to have to string a wire all that way.
The wire, and then you had to tape it down or zip tie it to your gun, and it looked like crap, and it would hang up on stuff if you actually were running it in classes or in real life. So, I mean, that's where I see it goes. I'm seeing we still have an AR-15 40 years from now because we had it 40 years ago, and it's not unrecognizable.
Well, I think that is a whole nother topic, or at least it runs into another topic. And would the AR-15 was modular, and if 3D printers and the technology of making machines like mills and end mills and things smaller would have never happened, would we have been at the mercy of whatever the companies would have said military contracts needed or something? Because that's sort of what we were at the mercy of for a long time there. But then after World War II, you had in every realm, like from hunting rifles to pistols to ammunition to reloading to like literally every realm, you had hobbyists and specific interests go off and do their own thing and say, I'm not satisfied with the general gun. I wanted to do this or that or the other thing. And then we have all these things. But then this modular gun is standing there, and everybody hated it for a long time. Everybody forgets that from 1950 until 1990. 2004, 2007 or something, then everybody was like, oh yeah, you know what, we like AR-15s now.
Yeah, you were a weirdo in 1990 if you owned an AR.
Or if you, and especially if you did anything to it. You could own an AR because of some reason. Like I want an H bar because I like to shoot long distance on this team, or I like to drill or something, or I want to be in the military, so I want one that's close to it. But yeah, nobody was playing with them or doing anything. Nobody did anything with any of their guns. You might, I mean, think about it. Like, what did you do with any of your guns back in the day? Nothing. You polished them, you cleaned them, and then maybe you wrote something like "Congratulations on your retirement" or something like that on a gun. But
you do that,
congratulations,
and that's it.
But anyway,
It's
so
like,
now
what do
we,
you mean?
we do different things with our guns for sure,
Yep.
or we treat our guns
So
differently. But we also have a relationship with our guns where, I mean, my gun lives in my pocket, so I got a relationship with this stupid gun that, you know, I like it. It's an okay gun and everything, but it's not my favorite gun. But I have a separate relationship with it because it's in my pocket every single day. Where that I could have never done that growing up. Nobody except for cops had that kind of relationship with an item.
well, a couple things changed though after World War II, and I think and it happened after World War One. I think that was the first in the thing I'm coming up with in my head. It was a worldwide war, so there were firearms all over the place, bolt action firearms and different things like that. And then after the war ended, there was a huge surplus. Well, there were still people that hunted, like hunting was a bigger thing, and sports shooting became a thing between the wars. If it wasn't already, I mean, it was already there, but it became bigger because you had these full size, service size guns. You had Mausers about a bucket load at the general store. You didn't even have to have it at a gun store. It was just another item they could sell for really cheap surplus, and then people bought it, and then people started modifying it, and rechambering it, and doing all kinds of crazy things to it. So that created a market. And then those Winchester, Remington, Colt, they were like, we got people interested in guns. We got to sell more of them, and they pushed it. So I believe that market was created between the wars and carried on after the war, and that created a gun culture that wasn't really like that before.
Well, yeah, because before that you didn't have, well, people didn't have the same kind of free time. They didn't have the same kind of vacations. They didn't have,
Hmm.
like, you know, same kind of jobs. And now, like you're saying, and then something that I don't know how it doesn't get brought up very often. I don't know. It's people don't come over to this section of our conversations or whatever. But you think of all those people coming home from World War II, a real war that lasted for quite a while. They're coming
Hmm.
home. Is there anything about PTS? No, it was called shell shock or something back in the day. So
Hmm.
the option to go out hunting, go out fishing, and get away from all the stuff that is unreal compared to what you just dealt with. And when that stuff starts leaking back in, and you got no other ways to deal with it, I'm guessing, you know, there's other reasons for sure that people were into these outdoor activities, but you know, the rise in outdoor activities blossoms because of tons and tons of reasons.
Lots of reasons. Leisure time, extra money that we didn't have before, days off.
You could get a car that
Because of
could get
40
you
hour,
there and all your stuff and your
yeah,
friends. Like before, you had to take a horse or a bus, right?
40-hour work weeks. I
Yep.
mean, all that stuff didn't exist, and it all came together to create the society we have now.
But there's
And
people that'll
hopefully,
say, like, we got violence. All of a sudden, we cared about guns, and then they started making guns to feed our, like, our fear and violence or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, those people aren't really that bright.
yeah.
They're now. I'm sorry because I watched a thing, but David, how Yahambe from Wake Forest, uh,
Oh,
the
Yamani,
professor with
Professor
Yamani.
Yamani.
I'm sorry. Yeah, he actually posted something from some academic, and you're looking at it and going, that doesn't make any sense. This guy came up with his conclusion and then tried to create situations to match up with something he already concluded with no research or with a total bias. And I think those are the smart people that they have in the anti-gun community that come up with stupid theories like we've become more violent. And it's like, no, that's not true at all. We're less violent than we've ever been as a society. It's almost like you've never opened a history book.
All right. So that was a pretty good time on that one, but I think that's an interesting topic. And I've definitely had conversations about that. I think we've had them in here before even, but be more than happy to address those again because things change, you know, with every year that goes by, the 3D printing stuff is more and more of a thing. You know, it was a blip at first, and that first Liberator or whatever was kind of like, yeah, whatever. But now, if you watch what people are doing, the Makers Match just happened.
Yep.
It's crazy, you know, the development and the, I guess, the variety of interests that are going on over there.
The variety of interests, when prize money goes up and innovation is celebrated and the winners of those matches become well known. I mean, it's not like we don't personally know the people that run those matches.
Yep. Okay, so then this one is also from Woods. How important is grip angle really? Seems overhyped to him. You probably deal with this more than, I mean, I've been around a bunch of people that are shooting, but you get around a lot more people that are new or whatever. Have you ever, well, I'll let you answer, but let me ask a question. Have you ever had a new shooter ever go, this seems so awkward? Like, you know, not, I'm sure they didn't say grip angle, but like, you know, meaning the grip angle was so awkward to them that they couldn't shoot the gun? Or is that just something made up to make my gun look different than your gun?
Okay. Because it's funny because I'm offsetting me when I first picked up a Glock compared to a 1911 when I got out of the military to the new shooters that I introduced to firearms monthly. They don't even notice because they've never touched a gun before. So, however you tell them they hold a gun, they hold a gun that way. And it's like it's all uncomfortable. So they're learning it all. And once you have a actual formal, a good education or a good introduction to something, it makes things easier. Now, as a vet bro or bro vet, I don't know which people want to. I had all this false Dunning-Kruger effect because I didn't know jack crap, except I'd shot a 1911 in boot camp once. So obviously I knew what I was doing because I was military. I go in and I have no idea how to hold a Glock correctly. And it feels weird and it feels stupid. So yeah, a grip angle meant something to me, but it's because I didn't know anything else. I knew very little, and the one thing I did know, this didn't align with. So I think that's a lot of the people that are clapping about grip angle is they know one thing, and if it's not like that one thing, it's wrong and it's a problem. Meanwhile, you can introduce a new shooter or someone that grew up with various firearms, and they're like, "Yeah, this is how you hold a Glock. This is how you hold a 1911. This is how you shoot a Luger," and it's just no big deal. You fire guns differently. I listen to a lot of these guys talk about they don't like the SKS because it's really hard to work it. And I'm like, no, no, it's really easy. And peasants have done it all across the globe who can't even read. What's your problem, Chief? Well, you had an
Under stress
AR-15.
successfully, too.
Yeah. And it's like because you got trained on an AR when you were in the military, and that's all you ever shot. But that's enough to get you YouTube geek points, and you bought a Daniel Defense, and that's all you know how to shoot badly. But you spent the money on the good thing when you should have taken that money and taken a class. Nothing wrong with getting the DD because I'm not one of those people that says, "Oh, save your money, get a Palmetto State, and then take $800 in classes." No, buy whatever you want. That's best whatever you can get, but take a class and learn some more. Because once you start taking classes, you'll learn how much you don't know. And I think that's what that grip angle thing is. A lot of people that know a little bit and then just saying stuff isn't right because it doesn't feel comfortable. Well, you've been shooting for 5 minutes.
I think there's, I don't know the names of the guitars or whatever, but I'm just going to say, there's something here with like guitars, let's say. So if you got like your $100 guitar, your $500 guitar, your $1,000 guitar, or whatever the prices are of guitars, you get your person that's going to go, so and so plays their $1,000 guitar, so that's what I'm buying, and then it just sits there on the wall, but they're cool because they've got the guitar like what's its face has. But then you get the person who buys the whatever I said the first one, $200 guitar or whatever, and then $200 worth of lessons, and then they get to where they can play a guitar, and then they figure out why a guitar looks like that or why it looks like that and what the difference is. I don't know what the difference are, but plays differently or you feel it. I don't know, whatever the differences are, but they learn the differences, and then they decide if they want to keep pursuing that one or not, right? And then maybe they decide somewhere in the mix, I'm better at playing this type, or it turns out even though I like this one originally, I now like this one. It's the same thing with guns, right? People buy them because of whatever reason, and then they just sit there looking at it. And you can do that all you want. There's no law that says you can't, and I don't fall for the bullshit that you can't use it successfully. Tons of people have never thought about training, even knew there was such a thing as training successfully used a gun. People that didn't even want a gun picked up a gun and successfully used a gun. It's a pretty simple tool to use, but just like a hammer or a guitar, you can pick it up and make noise. It doesn't mean you can pick it up and play it. So, picking it up and stopping someone from killing you is not picking it up and shooting accurately, or picking it up and having confidence with it, or picking it up and being able to shoot something accurately. And all those are tasks that not everybody wants, but they're there for you if you want them. And I don't know, I'm just trying to say that I don't think there's a right or wrong, I guess.
I 100% agree with you. I get frustrated with the gatekeeping by our own community sometimes over that. Well, you should get training. Yes, and I should also eat balanced breakfast. I mean, yeah, great. I should do that, but it's not necessary to exercise your right. So, yeah, grip angle, I've seen people make a big deal about it. Also, the whole bore axis thing, high bore axis, low bore axis. Because, SIGs recoil a lot because they have such a high bore axis, but CZs don't because they have a low bore axis. And I'm like, well, actually, a Glock has a lower bore axis than CZ. And it's all about technique, both with grip angle and recoil management. So the more you learn, the better you're going to be able to counteract the things that many people say are a problem that aren't. And a lot of people say things just so they can seem smarter than they are. So they try to make it look like a problem. I see that as a thing that we have to check. As an instructor myself, you can't tell someone, excuse me, it doesn't help when you tell a new shooter about bore axis or grip angle as if it's a problem. They don't know it's a problem until you said something. You're screwing it up. Just teach them how to shoot the firearm. They'll figure it out.
I think of it too sometimes like sitting in a car. Like you're learning how to drive a car. What car did you learn in? A Chevrolet probably, but or maybe a Ford, right? But do you remember the model? No, because who cares? What except for this one time I rented a Grand Marquis because I used to like to rent things that look like cop cars. I rented a Grand Marquis and it had the worst headrests. Like literally the worst. They were so annoying. They just tweaked your neck in such a way, and driving to Vegas and back in them was just annoying. Like I can still remember that to this day. But aside from that, I don't remember any rental car I've ever been in. And it's not because I can adjust the seat. It's just because I could care less about the seat. But if you wanted to be picky, you could go, oh, I don't like the angle of the seat on this one, or I don't like the proportion to the seat to the floor. All the different ways you can get mad about a seat in a car, or the angle of the dashboard, or, the distance to the heater or the radio or something. But really, we all can just get in a car and drive it. And I feel like up until somebody decided grip angle was a thing because they hated Glocks, and it was all because Glock said we made it the perfect grip angle. If they would have never said that, we probably wouldn't even be talking about grip angle, except for it's like the distance between the bottom of the trigger guard and the magazine well. Nobody cares about that. But if Glock came out and said we have the perfect distance between the magazine well and the trigger guard, everybody would freak out about whatever that distance is called, right? The grip length or whatever.
Yep. Hold on. What was this thing? I was trying to think of the one rental car that I like. It was huge. I think it was the Olds. That was one of the things I liked, and I actually looked it up at one time to see how much like a new one would cost. I mean, not a new one, but one of the ones from back in the day it cost, and it was just too much. It was just too much for a car that age.
You ever seen a place that rents like customized cars from the 80s or something, be able to rent an El Camino or a Cadillac or something instead of boring?
No, I mean I heard of a company called Toro that they have higher end cars, which I wouldn't want to rent a higher end car. What in the hell
As I
will?
say, I've only seen like the what do they call those things? Supercars and like Lamborghinis and crap,
Yeah,
like in Vegas. I don't. It'd be neat,
yeah,
I guess, if I was into them. I'm not, but I
yeah.
think it'd be cool if I could rent like a cool El Camino or just like a cool lowered truck or something, just to have for a couple of days and not have to ever worry about having that car again. Like get whatever itch out of there.
Yeah, like that would be cool. But yeah, I wouldn't want to freaking have, a higher end whatever the hell. I'm like, why would I want to get carjacked out of a rental car on vacation in Vegas? Hey,
I don't know
they
about
was sitting at the
nowadays.
light.
That probably happens.
hmm Just snatched right out of the car. You were happy for 5 whole minutes until you rounded the corner. No thanks. But yeah, I forgot what the name of that thing was, man. It was a land yacht. It was freaking huge. It was way too old of a car for me to be in it. Oh, the old person car. And I was remember driving it. I rented it on base, and I drove. I think I was driving either Jersey or Virginia, and we got in Wake, Raleigh, Durham area, and they just had a sudden downpour, like you couldn't see in front of you. And I got rear-ended by like a '71 Toyota Corolla, and it just ripped the whole front of the guy's car off. Like headlights popped out, grill popped off, bumper fell off, and all it did was leave a mark about the size of a pencil eraser on my back bumper. I jump out of the car, really ticked off. Like I didn't yell, I didn't scream. I'm just like, dude. And the guy was like, "Don't hit me, man. Don't hit me." He was like a hippie. He was like, "Everything's okay." And he just picked up the pieces of his car, threw it in the trunk, and drove off. And I was just left standing there, and I drove off too. But it was a really cool car. I can't remember what it was. It was a rental car from Enterprise back in the early '90s.
I had a old Impala. Would just say in the Delta 88.
Mm-mm,
I thought Delta 88s
not
were
Grandma
two door.
Q. Yeah, Grandma
But
Q.
I had a 4-door Impala that was pretty awesome. It was huge. Uh, Back when gas was cheap enough that I could, justify whatever. It probably got 12 miles to the gallon or something.
Yeah, yeah, big giant V8s that didn't move.
Well, it went pretty quick, but yeah, I mean, it was a boat. They call it a boat because it would just sway. The shocks were so crazy, and it was such a big thing that it didn't. Well, you could anyway. It was fun because you did potholes and the rough roads back in the day. It would just glide along them because the shocks were there to go up and down. The weight of the car. The reason they made those things like that is because the weight of the car would kind of stay, in one place, and the wheels would go up and down all around to the potholes and things. It was pretty good, pretty comfortable to drive, I should say. But well, I don't know. I probably would have kept it if it wasn't just so much money to keep it going. But yeah, it was so easy to work on that car too. Now that I'm thinking about it, probably should have kept that car. But I traded in for my Impala, or no, I traded my Impala in for my El Camino, and it didn't have room for two giant cars like that.
Yeah, dude, those things ate gas. Oh, this is really driving me nuts. Was it a O's '98? Like these are just it was a boat. And I really wanted one for a long time because it was just so cool. So when I finally got my Cadillac DeVille, it was awesome for a little while until you learn the Cadillac North Star engines and everything else about them are garbage. I hit 100,000 miles and lights started coming on in that car, like I was Maverick and they had achieved missile lock immediately. I hit 100,000 miles, and within I think 100 miles of 100,000 miles, I started getting service lights coming on, and they didn't go off until the car was totaled in the car accident.
Trying to figure out what these guys are talking about out there. They got something going on.
Who's that? Oh, Silver Bullets.
Oh, New York was saying that Woods should join them. I thought I missed something.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was looking for questions in here, and Rob was saying, in a market for what's he? Can you help me find a magic? Wait, help me find magic bullets for sale at a reasonable price. So, if there was such a thing, is there such a thing as a magic bullet? And if you had to choose a bullet to be a magic bullet, what would it be?
Hmm. All right, as far as magic bullets goes, yeah, there've been tons of magic bullets according to the media and the press that receives them. What was it? Black Talons were a magic bullet. You know what I mean? Talking they exaggerated the effectiveness of it. 357, 125 grain semi jacketed were magic bullets too. 98% stopping power from a handgun. Yeah, okay. Um, if they were magic bullets, hmm, I don't know. I think in the realm of reality, we've been sold magic bullets before. Remember RIP rip ammo? It's supposed to be really
Oh,
effective. Blazer. Oh, the air marshals use it so they don't puncture the plane. These puts you down in a second because of the giant wound cavity. So we've dealt with that before. But real magic bullets, hmm, nah. Bunch of cool bullets out there, a bunch of cool cartridges that may not see a bunch of sale. Like I think 357 Sig was really cool, but that fell off. And I think Super Carry is kind of cool, 30 Super Carry, but I don't know if that will take off.
yeah, I think that if you just think of a standard jacketed lead core, just a jacketed bullet. So take a lead bullet and you wrap it in copper. That's pretty
Hmm.
good. I mean, the ball ammo essentially. That works pretty darn good. And then you cut a hole in the top of it and you make it a hollow point. And so that's if there
Fortunately.
was a magic one, I'd say just doing the jacketed. Whenever we got to jacketed bullets, keeps your barrel from getting all clogged up, keeps the projectile from losing a bunch of mass. Or an unknown amount of mass every time you shoot. So it's just seems makes more sense or whatever. But I would say probably a hollow point. Just in general, the concept of a hollow point being able to make it more effective for stopping power in a mammal or a critter when you're hunting, for defense or for hunting, and then also at the same time, just inherently lessening, not removing, but lessening its what do you call like its over penetration or whatever, its
Hmm.
potential to do unexpected damage is pretty cool, and it's not perfect for sure. Like you say, there is no such thing yet, but I would say just modern concept of and then you get to the point where is it just federal that does the bonded core, where they do some kind of a process and they're not too they're bonded in a way that they're like
They
welded
don't
together.
separate,
Yeah, so that they
chemically.
stay as a unit where typically that lead core or the lead core copper um, jacket will separate because they have no, they're just inside of each other. One's inside the other, like a cup and water. They have no tendency to stay together. But when they bond them, that can become pretty effective. I just have no idea if anyone's ever done overpenetration tests on bonded because it's only really one or two brands that do that, or one company that makes one or two models or brands or whatever that do it. So I don't know if it's a big enough player to do it, but and that's
They've
kind of
done it. I
the
mean,
answer because it's just sort of like saying all modern ammunition is the magic bullet, which is essentially what I just said.
well, it's funny because reading historical fiction from gun people, you know what I mean, that understand firearms and how firearms work. We've had multiple magic bullets from uh, just putting things in it with a patch, you know what I mean, and loading from the top, like using the patch to Minet balls, um, being able to expand and being loaded from the breech. I mean, we've had bullets that would seem magical to anybody from one generation earlier before the advent of it. So I don't see anything wrong with that, dude. It's I feel is very interesting. That's one of the things I like about firearms and firearms development. to watch that leap in technology that isn't even based on, like, you can't go every 50 years something happens. It's like, no, no. The difference between a wheel lock and a flint lock was like 500 years. It was like 500 years, and then flint locks came along. And then there was another 200 years before percussion caps came along. And then after that, it was like self contained cartridges. What? It's like, yeah, it's crazy how this popped along and just it's faster. And now we're in a place where pretty much all we're doing is changing calibers, just sliding the scale up and down and changing calibers. The technology of the round itself really hasn't changed, at least not effectively. I know Double Tap has some ammo that has two projectiles in it, and so did whoever made that PDX round with for the 410 shotgun. They had the little disc in it, but really, I think it's all pretty cool and magical. But I'm a geek. I'm a knob. That's why we do this show. We let our inner geek fall out.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, it's probably possible for somebody to keep up on all of this, but even if you thought you had it all dialed in, either learn something new or something else changes, and that can adjust, multiple things. Let's see. So I don't know what's meant by Wonder 9. I think it's just being sensational.
Wonder Nines. Oh, he wants to start a fight with you, I take it.
Yeah, he's just trying to create drama. There's Air Patriot. Welcome. Outcast is saying the most important question: what brand pencil does? Oh, that's what that says. What brand pencil does Wick use in an emergency, and is it made in the USA? I think all our pencils are made in the USA, aren't they? Well, maybe not all, but I think a lot of pencils are made in the USA.
Well, let's just go ahead and know it. It's Ticonderoga. Quit asking silly questions. It's up near you there, New York outcast.
I was going to say, one of the big industries we got. Getting a billion flies all of a sudden. They're not like bees, are they? Where there's like a fly swarm in my house or something?
No, usually.
Oh, you know what it is? It's windy. I think it's windy, and I had a window or a door open, and they probably just took shelter in here. I got to get my electric fly swatter out and start wailing on some flies.
So I was felt a little old this week because Springfield Armory came out with their M16A2 clone. And you have all these young dudes talking about, yes, it's the M16A2 for back in the 80s and the 90s. And I'm like, shut up. And they're talking about it like it was forever ago. But I'm thinking, as I was a young man, 15, 16, reading survival magazines and reading Soldier of Fortune, when you're reading the gun stuff and they're talking about, the M1 carbine being the survival gun, and us like stuck to it going, oh man, the M1 carbine from William Carbine Williams and Winchester, and this is really stuff that's really cool. And it's somebody that was our age now, back then, going, shut up. I was issued that in boot camp. Like, there's nothing extraordinary or nostalgic about it. I had the damn thing. Quit making a big deal about it. And now I'm looking at it like this. Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking back then, they're probably thinking you could go to the store and buy this brand new gun and this brand new gun, that were just different and they were brand new. And today everybody's looking at that same thing, looking right past the brand new stuff that's available with all the tech.
Is that an A1? What? Yeah, why? Move all that crap out of the way.
I like the A1 at least for its sights, that you had to use a bullet tip to adjust the sights. Where the 2, you have a big knob up there. And the 1, I don't like looking at that big knob. And 2, I think it's too easy to accidentally hit that knob and, be off a click or two. And if you're not really, who pays attention to that kind of stuff, that's my issue. So if I had a choice, I go with A1 sights if I can help it.
See, I'm on the other side of that, and I love the A2. Matter of fact, I'm holding one in my hand right now with the A2 upper sights. I got my dissipator right now, and I really enjoy these sites. I competed with them, and if you don't touch them, they don't move. I haven't bumped them
No,
off.
no,
You know what I'm
and
saying?
I've never done it. I've never accidentally done it or intentionally done it. I just have that fear that it could happen. So that's all.
Hmm.
But it's never
Yeah,
happened.
because when I actually talk to people about it who's actually handled them, everybody goes, "Well, it could," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it doesn't unless you mess with it." Because we had some of the dumbest Marines I ever met, and even they didn't mess it up. So we had dudes still shooting the wrong target at the end of boot camp, and they didn't mess it up. They just can't count. You're 32, bro. You shoot target 32. That
Shooting the wrong
32's right
target,
beside you.
but
Yeah.
accurately, right? Like dead on,
Yeah.
just at the
You,
target.
how in the hell are you 32 and you shoot target 25? Because remember, oh, did you guys pull butts? Did you guys work and pull the targets down, or was it all electronic when you
Oh
went
fuck
through?
no, no, yeah. We had to go in whatever it was, platoons at a time, and you'd be
Hmm.
off one, somebody'd be shooting, and then somebody'd be down there. Actually,
Yep.
one person was walking down there. One troop was like walking down there because it was so far. And then I forgot how often you changed out. It was pretty fun though. I mean, there was no
Oh, it was
danger of
definitely fun.
ever unless something hit like a nail or something, and then like a ricochet could happen. I guess technically, but I'd never seen it
We
happen.
yeah,
You were like
we got
behind the
two
berm.
guys.
It was nothing.
We got two guys shot while I was there.
Oh shit! Ours was a giant berm, and these targets were way the hell above us, so nowhere near
Hmm.
us.
Yeah, they still managed to get shot.
Oh yeah.
Um, because I'm telling you, dude, I have 100% respect for the military, but I also have no doubt they're a bunch of idiots uh, in there. And one, it was just really, it's almost impossible to follow it's impossible to follow the rules and get hurt. They didn't follow the rules. Remember when you're in the bus, they had a shed on the other side of a yellow line. Do not cross the yellow line when there's firing going on. Under no circumstances do you cross the yellow line when there's firing going on. We will tell you when to cross the yellow line. These two assholes thought they'd run across the yellow line, grab new targets, and they'll be ready before anybody else. Well, they ran out there. A ricochet happened, nailed one through the arm and the other one through the shoulder. So of course they called ceasefire. I was on the line. I was one of the guys on the line when it went down. Ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire. Ambulance is coming on the way. Secure your weapons. Boom, boom, boom. What happened? So of course they had to call down. You know, you got the emergency in the pit. They had to stop the bleeding. They had to apply first aid. Then they had to call down, call the ambulance. Then they could tell us what was happening. So of course, typical Marines, we're all just waiting, like, what stupid thing happened now? And we find out that two guys got hit by one round. Funniest thing I ever heard. The very next sentence. Who did it? Because I think you should qualify as an expert if you shoot two dudes with one round and you can't even see
Yeah, no shit.
them.
He shot his target and them two dudes, technically.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about John Wick before there was a John Wick. And I was like, and this is what I love about the Corps. And that's some of the stuff and sayings and happenings that you miss. And they try to trick you into signing back up and re-enlisted. Then you remember sometime it really sucked. But yeah, dude, that was the only time I saw people get hurt on the range because they did not follow the rules. And I think one of the few things as a firearms instructor that the military that I feel my military experience helped with stuff like that. When you see something that's stupid firsthand, you try to explain to people how important following the rules are, and you have an antidote to go with it that you actually live through. Like
And the thing
that.
is, it's not like people go, "Oh, I'm going to risk fate or I'm going to tempt fate." They just think that they're not at risk. Like they just don't.
Mhm.
They fail to understand there's actually risk because their whatever perception, their angle on it, and then it's not like many people are. I don't think everybody is reckless or everybody's just a dumb shit. They're
Mm-mm.
for whatever reason they just thought for a minute like, oh, whatever. I haven't seen a ricochet hit here all day. I'm just going to run out here, not realizing that.
What are the chances? What are the chances we'll get hit by? It's not the chance. It's not the chance. It's the risk, bro. So Yeah, so this M16A2, I have an M16A4 clone I built, and I have this dissipator that's supposed to be an M16A2, but I put an M16A1 buttstock on it because I felt the length of pull was kind of long on the A2. If you remember that, it's a
Well,
little
call
long.
it something. I don't care. But I don't.
Yeah.
I guess I can't say that. I can't remember shooting in the military because I've shot every other AR that I've ever shot with the
Hmm.
stock collapsed and my nose almost on the
Yeah.
charging handle, if not on the charging handle.
Hmm.
So back in the day when I was a kid, I don't know how the hell I was shooting that thing. Somehow, well, we were shooting with regular eyes, maybe with glasses on, I guess, but going through steel, whatever, iron sights. Uh, at 300 yards, we only had to shoot 300 yards, I think, but we were knocking down silhouettes at 300 yards with
Hmm.
our shoulders way the hell back there. So our eyes, I don't know, we probably chalked up on it or whatever, but nobody ever told us to put our nose on the charging handle back in the day.
No,
You were
that's not.
shooting like a regular rifle somewhere on the stock or whatever. And that's one of the things that gets people. They don't realize consistency, right? So if they didn't happen to say that in your training, if you didn't know that already from just shooting as a kid, and you put your head down on a stock in a different place each time, well, yeah, you're shooting all over the place because each time you're creating a new set of math. If you put your head in this, that's one of the reasons you put your nose on the charging handle now, is that your face is always the same distance from the optics then. But yeah, that's I never even thought about that kind of stuff. Well, I guess I thought about it myself, but I don't know what I was doing back then. I probably had some rule. I don't know if I ever mentioned my thing was I was in the reserve, so I had old people, like literally guys from Nam and stuff, that could tell me stuff
Hmm.
before I was even going to basic. And so I had all kinds of tips, and they were like, "Look, you're going to be there all day anyway, so don't shoot expert, and you're going to just be sitting there watching other people shoot. So fail, fail, fail until the last minute, and then shoot expert." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I was just sitting there plinking all day, shooting stuff like shooting branches and shit. Like I was just shooting, and then at the last minute, they're like, "This is the last round," and they're like, "Oh," they knew I could shoot or whatever, but they're like, "You better hurry up," like anyway. So I played around a lot, and then I think I've told my story with the M60. I would gamble
Yeah.
all through basics that I have long, like the big long belt on the M60. But anyway, that was a long time ago, and it's a little different back in the day because basic was essentially the same thing for everybody all the time, and I don't know if it's like that anymore. Where
No
somebody
clue.
back in the day, I think it's like that for Marines, but for everybody else, I don't know if it's like that, or even for Marines anymore. But essentially, the basic would have been the same from Vietnam to when we were in or whatever. It was barely changed. Like, oh, you wear gym shoes now instead of boots when you run. But essentially, we were
Yeah.
in the same buildings, using the same brushes and everything else. Everything was the same.
Everything's the freaking same, dude. True. True. What is this? How much is this? $1,200 for the H&R M16A2 from Palmetto States, 12.99, and same price for the freaking Springfield Armory too.
So less than 15. I was just watching something. Was it Keep Going where somebody was showing the levers from Smith? Are those Smith and Wesson
Hmm.
levers? And what are they, 15 and 18 or something like that? So would you
Oh,
rather? Are they more than
did
that?
you just watch my what you call it that I posted today? Is that it?
Oh, maybe it
It
was
was
on
from Arrow.
Instagram. Was it on
Yeah,
Instagram? Yeah,
Arrow
yeah,
Arrow Precision and Stag. Yeah, yeah. I
yeah, yeah.
recorded that at Shot Show.
So okay, so then it was yours thing that I was just looking
Hmm.
at. So they were telling prices because I don't retain prices. If you ask me 20 minutes from now how much these guns cost, I will forget
No.
because I'm not in the thing and I could care less. So it's just on my head right now. But because I watched your thing earlier today, would you rather spend less than $2,000 on an old AR or a fancy lever action? I'd say an old AR, but not an old looking AR, but like a retro AR or a
Yeah,
modern.
I kind of want an
So
M16A2.
no, I hear
I
that.
want an M16A2. I have an A4, which is the same thing except it has a flat top, and
I don't like
it
flat
has.
tops. I don't
Go
like
ahead.
them. I don't like the flat tops. I
Yes.
grew up with
See, I
handles. I
got the
want my handle.
exactly. So I have a Riz rail on it. I have the whole nice armored rail. Well, it's not a nice armored, but it's a P&L, whatever. But yeah, I have the whole build of an A4 from Saber Defense, who was making DMRs for the Marine Corps, and their management messed up and all went to prison, and the company went out of business. And I actually own one of those. So I was blessed with that, and I've been taking it to diversity shoots and letting people shoot it. But then I have a dissipator that still has the flat top, but I put the carry handle on it, and I like it like this. But it has a carry handle on it. You know what I mean? I want to actually have the one
You mean it's got
with
a
the carry.
rail with a carry handle as
Yeah, it's
opposed
got
to
a
the
rail with the
upper?
carry
Yeah.
handle.
And there's a
Yeah,
big
I
difference
want
because that rail eats into every amount of room you have for your knuckles. So it's
whole
not
thing.
really. So,
So it's not for real, and I want one for real, for real. But hey, whatever, man. I mean, I'm happy because I'm that kid, and now I have guns I dreamed of having as an adult. I have them now, and it's pretty cool.
I liked whatever
So,
the original. I don't know what it is. I'm not that into ARs, but the from Nam era where there was a carbine, and then for whatever reason they put that giant thing on the barrel, that giant flash hider on the barrel. I
hmm
personally would have the flash hider, but the old ones originally did have that. I had one for a while. It was like a stag retro looking thing, like it or a remake type of thing, because that barrel would have been an SBR. So they just permanently attached this big piece of chunk to the front that made it look cool. But after a while, it drove me nuts because I couldn't put a bayonet on it, and I got rid of it. But I kind of wish I would have kept it, even though I don't like owning things that can't put it. I don't know why I like having bayonets, so I guess so. I like whenever
yeah,
I'm debating, especially when I'm poor and I'm like I really need a new gun, but I got to get rid of a gun to get it. I'll usually go if it can't hold a bayonet, or I have done. If it can't hold a bayonet, it's on its way out, and that's how that gun
that's
got out of
funny.
here. And I sold the
You
whole
couldn't
thing
own
because
it.
it was a complete gun. I didn't want to just sell the upper because it was worth more as a complete gun back in the day.
Well, all you'd own in New Jersey would be bolt actions and an SKS, because everything else you got to freaking take the bayonet logo off.
Oh my goodness! I've lived under that type of regime before, but that's why I moved to Arizona. But I
Hmm
forget about that, and that's one of the reasons I'm glad we do the show because it's very easy for people that aren't dealing with a boot on their neck to
hmm
forget about that, and just have these conversations is I'm glad you brought that up because it's a good splash in the face to remember that we're talking about stuff we take for granted, some things that some of us take for granted, for things that not everybody gets to participate in. And heck, half stuff
We're
we're
actually
talking about, Tony could participate in, but he can't own it and take it home.
nope. I actually was talking to on our podcast, Gun and Gear Review podcast, years ago, and we had Zane on. Zane is a firearms instructor from Florida, younger dude. He was in the Marine Corps too, but decade after I was or more. And we'd be talking about firearms, and it's like, well, why would you even own a pistol caliber AR? Because it doesn't make sense. It's the same size as a rifle, yada 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 yada. And I'm like, because if you live somewhere like I do, one, you're in an urban area, so the only place you can shoot is at an indoor range. Many indoor ranges won't let you shoot rifle calibers. So you have an AR with all the ergonomics, lightweight, adjustability, modularity, and you use it to shoot a pistol caliber. So now you can run it just like anything else, but you can shoot a pistol caliber. You can shoot in an indoor range regularly instead of buying something that's a rifle caliber and maybe going to shoot once a month or once every couple of months whenever you could do a 2.5 hour drive one way. You know what I mean? So yeah, everybody doesn't live in the same situation, the same place. And I think it's cool that we have this technology that you, myself, Clover, or whoever else is on, Woods and Outcast can all talk to each other and talk about different experiences in this whole Second Amendment community, firearms community thing. Heck yeah, 50% of the guns I own is because I wanted them as a kid. And that's what I'm trying to promote with the diversity shoot when I volunteer to work with the kids, because the kids out there, and by kids, I mean pretty much anybody that grew up with video games in the last 30 years. It's like you had this in GoldenEye, you shot this in Call of Duty, you shot this. So when I can come up and have something like the High Tower Armory kit for 1022 that makes my firearm look like a suppressed P90. Why not? Not many people. One, the freaking what is it called? It's not called a P90. The civilian version, PS90,
Yeah,
PA90,
the PS90.
whatever. Yeah, yeah, with the 16-inch barrel, looks like garbage. So who the heck would want it? And it costs a ton of money, and 5.7 is expensive. And then you'd have to buy the 50 round magazines, or you buy this $200 kit that you put on your Ruger 1022, and it looks a lot like it. The controls work like it, as far as safety and the trigger, and you just have fun shooting a 22 at the range. Doesn't make a lot of noise. If you're indoor or outdoor, you put a red dot on it, you put a flashlight on it. I have a laser on mine too, and you just have fun pretending at an indoor range. You're not blasting your eardrums out. You're not going broke. Great. That's also why I'm looking at trying to find 22 versions of 1911s, because it allows you to have this whole build out kit of toy gun, well, not toy guns, real firearms, but they look like the more expensive, heavier duty centerfire versions of the gun, and you can, and it's as long as it's dependable and reliable and goes bang every time you pull the trigger, you're gonna have a great time with it. Why not? There's nothing wrong with owning firearms because they're fun.
Actually, there's something wrong when you can't handle that. There's people that don't own firearms for fun. Okay, you don't have to own nothing you don't want, but there's people that can't tolerate guns for fun, and that's messed up. It's detrimental to our momentum, essentially, because it's just taking time away from fights that we have to have. But anyway, here and there, Outcast had said earlier, I seen a couple of NDs, negligent discharges, in cleaning barrels, and one double feed on a range in the military. Like you said, many people are new to guns when joining. I'm trying to remember. I knew a couple of guys that, the dude that I don't know, you guys are different. Ours had a giant room and then a bunch of smaller rooms and then a couple of small rooms. And in the small rooms is where they stuck us. So me and a dude were in a, what do you call that? Like roommates in a room. And then there was like a bunch of rooms with 4 people. And then there was a room with like 16 people. So everybody had a different situation, right? When you're sitting around being bored, we had our own room. Everybody else, was in a room with a different number of people. So anyway, I got to know him real well. And less of the people in the other rooms or whatever of my platoon or whatever it was called. But I'm trying to remember anymore. Do you remember back that far ago how many people were like knew about guns or not? I'm gonna guess.
Oh, knew about firearms?
Never had picked up a gun. I'm thinking maybe most of them have never picked up a gun, and a couple of us were like totally familiar with guns. And I think it was pretty much black and white. Like it was either you'd never touched one or you knew everything about them.
I didn't even know to ask that thing because my assumption was everybody grew up with firearms. And
okay.
I mean, that was
I
just an
didn't
assumption.
ask as much as I think we like the guy that like the couple of guys I knew in basic came from Detroit. They were just totally different, right? Like they grew up in a city, I didn't, and they just had no experience doing all kinds of shit, and I had no experience with their kind of shit. So like we spent, how it is when you're a kid and you're away from home for the first time. Every minute you can, you're thinking, you're talking about all these different ways that we all grew up. So I learned that they never touched a gun. Essentially, I mean, I'm not saying they touched a gun. It's just they never went shooting. They never had practice. They didn't know how to shoot a gun accurately, that kind of shit. Like a lot of people had picked up a gun before, or maybe played with a fake gun or something. But anyway, I just kind of threw. No one had ever said it formally or so. Oh, you know what though? Now that I'm thinking about it, there was this guy that he was going to be a journalist, and he would go around. I think there was a movie. One of the movies back in the day, there was a journalist in it, and he kept going around. And this guy was like that guy. He would go around asking people questions, and he would write all this stuff down. And he's like, I'm gonna write a book about when I was in basic. So I do remember from you're all in a giant room together half the time, and so he'd be asking somebody, and he would do it in front of people, everybody most of the time, because you're half the time back in the day. I don't know if it's like this now, but you had to walk everywhere. And that means you're waiting every time. So 90% of the time in basic, you're just standing there waiting for something or in line for something. So it was one of those times, he would ask the people their stories, and we all kind of heard each other's origin stories that way. Or I shouldn't say all, but I heard a bunch of people's stories that way. So anyway, I guess I got the impression that not too many people had been around guns, except for a couple of us that had them, and that was like, say, the 80s. But I don't know. When I was in basic, it was people from all the fuck over everywhere. There was definitely not. I mean, there was probably here or there was two people that knew each other. And I guess I was saying, like, my roommate, if you want to call him a roommate, because it's not like we spent all that much time. We slept in that room together, but it's not like we went in there and spent time in there. Like most of the time you're running around
hung out,
group or whatever. But because we were in that room, his friend from Detroit, they enlisted at the same time and everything. Like they were guaranteed to be together, and they went to the same unit and everything. So they just happened to come, they were hanging out all the time. So anyway, I knew that those guys, their stories or whatever, but anyhow, I never really thought about it until you were saying that so if you came from, or if you were in basic, well, the Marines are a little bit different too. Like our basic was, like I say, people from all the hell over everywhere. I'm trying to think. We were all young though. I don't think there was anybody old in our basic. But when I went to school after basic, then it was even crazier because it was people from all over, and all these old people came. Because when I was in basic, we were all like 18 or whatever. Or because I was young, but what I mean, we were all like new recruits, but when you get into schools, it's different because people fail and do other things and change jobs and stuff. So they have to go back to school. And so you can have like a 35-year-old hanging out with you in a school where, basic is pretty much all kids. But in the Marines, is it like a bunch of people from wherever you're Virginia go to the basic together or whatever you call it? Boot together? No. Okay.
Oh, hell no. Oh, no. Hold on. Okay. So we went to MEPS, obviously, and that's in Richmond. And then we took the train from Richmond down to Charlottesville. And then we took a bus from Charlottesville to the base in the middle of the night, just like in the movies. Get off my fucking bus, get on yellow footsteps. That's what we did. And then from there, we're split up. I think I was with like 4 guys coming out of Virginia, going to boot camp. And I couldn't tell you, everybody was white but me. That's the only thing I can tell you about that. I can't tell you one thing about those guys, decades later. But we weren't all together. Matter of fact, I don't even think I met another Virginian in my platoon of like 80 people. Like, and we all stayed in the squad bay, pretty much just like Full Metal Jacket. Matter of fact, everything about Full Metal Jacket squad bay was us. Bathrooms, everything.
Yeah,
Except
they take pride in not changing your shit.
Yeah, somehow having a crappy barracks becomes some proud tradition.
Our barracks wasn't that much
asbestos.
They were newer, but they were still like all wood and that kind of thing. But I kind of dug it. Like in school, it was in AIT, it was like that.
Yeah, nah. They were like, mesothelioma is killing your grandfather.
Deep.
Mesothelioma is killing your grandfather is going to kill you too from the same barracks.
I guess that part, no, but I just meant like the dorm, literally the dorm part. Because when I was in basic, that was more like apartments, and I thought I was disappointed. I was hoping it was going to be wooden buildings from World War II, and it was like lame 70s brick buildings, and they were kind of like I say, there was a dorm, and then there was all these smaller rooms, and then there was this one room that was small, and I just got the luck of I don't know if we liked it or not back then, honestly, but well, anyway, I think we're rambling. We're just reminiscing.
Yeah, I'm just checking out the guys, and just old dudes talking about their time in the military.
Unexciting times in the military, like Cold War, blah times.
Hey, man, we won the Cold War. We crawled so somebody else could go to war for 20 years and have an ended war.
I listen to so many of these interviews, and a lot of times they'll ask origin stories, and depending on just the person, I guess they'll elaborate more or less on their basic or that initial in doctrine. Is that what it's called? In whatever it's called, in processing and all that.
Yeah.
And it is different now. Like they had, I guess what I was getting at is we had instructors from the olden days. And I mean, literally, like whatever they did in World War II, they did in Korea. And then whatever they did in Korea, they did in Vietnam. And whatever they did in Vietnam, they did with us because nothing was going on. It was all Cold War. So for us, it was like, we got nothing else to do. Let's just do what they did. So they were just mean to us. And they, at some point, they said, you can't kick us. Like you guys were after us, but like in the Army, they couldn't touch us after a while. And so it got a little bit different, but essentially it was just, make you do PT a lot and then do this and yell at you all the time and freak you out. And, that whole break you down and build you up. But the thing is, they figured out, I think, because I'm listening to all these kids talk about their time in, somewhere in the middle of this whole global war on terror, they changed it up and they're like, we don't need to do all that bullshit anymore. These kids are already volunteering. Like, let's just get them in here and train them shit. And like, they got so much shit they need to know. We don't have to do all this stuff. And we were just the victims. Because of the times, there was they knew we weren't going to do nothing. So we had to be disciplined. Like we had to be as good as we could get because they were only going to let like 4 people do anything good ever anyway. So you had to be as, if you wanted a shot at doing anything good, like you had to be the fucking best of the best. So you basically sat around trying to be the best of the best all the time. Nobody has time for that shit anymore. Like who cares if your uniform's this or that, or who cares if you can do this or that, if you can recite some dumb thing. Like how many trucks are on a military base? There's only one. Like that kind of dumb shit.
Oh yeah, baby. I remember that from some of the tests. How many trucks on the military base?
And
I don't know, 1,000?
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a bonus if you know what a truck is, because there's only one truck in the Army, or in any of them, I guess. And there's anywhere. There's only one truck. But anyway.
And what's in the truck? Yeah.
Right. A bullet and what is it? A bullet? I know there's a bullet. A pen?
A bullet, a match, and directions on how to burn the flag.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know a guy I only know that because a guy won something of the month or something of the base. Like, they have these competitions and some guy won. And that was one of the questions. So they've never asked us that. I mean, I don't know if it ever came up in a manual or anything. But anyway.
I wondered, did they change it from a 45 bullet? Because that's what it was when we were there.
Oh, shit. Yeah, it's true. Actually, I bet you they never did, right? So they're going to be in a situation where somebody needs that. They're going to be like, dang, I got a stupid issued in 9mm. I can't do what I need to do.
You guys trying to burn the flag, follow the directions, and pick up the bullet, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with a 45?
I got kind of dire at the end, but I'm going to leave it vague so that people, if they want to figure it out, they can go try to figure it out. If you really want to know what we're alluding to, we'll talk about it next time, but we'll leave
it's worth it
with a cliffhanger, so to speak.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, Sharon's out there. Welcome. And
love Sharon.
Dorms, they're the same buildings we used at Fort Buchanan, Puerto Rico. And is that what that is? Puerto Rico in the 70s?
Yep.
Right on. We have one here at Davis Monthan that's still like the old one. I remember them because I was in Civil Air Patrol. So I got to go whenever they let us, I would go to wherever I could. So I went all around the Midwest to different Air Force bases and sometimes other bases, but mostly Air Force bases. I call everything bases now because I grew up with Air Force stuff, but so base and stuff, but they're really forts and posts. But anyway, I grew up in all those wooden ones from like the old days. Well, wooden stuff from the old days in the Midwest is like World War II. But out here, there's barracks from like the olden days, like Civil War, Indian Wars, like olden days.
Wow.
And, because some of that stuff still exists. But, depending on where you were for basic or whatever, we have one of those buildings out here at the museum is what I was getting at. So it is kind of neat. And that's the one you see in all the movies of like Vietnam. Everybody's that goes to basic, even in Army movies, it's the same kind of wooden building, the dorms. And that was just a government. I think I was in, what the hell was I? I was in something and I was waiting for somebody. So I went to it was back when I was still in the military. I was still in the Army. I was at some base probably, or I was at some fort, I guess. But anyway, I was waiting for somebody to travel with them. So I had like a day and I went to the museum. And I used to go to the military museums all the time because you'd be in that situation where you got all the time in the world. Like you got 2 days before something happens. So what else are you going to do? Go eat or go look at the museum or go? Because there was no TV or nothing to watch or nothing back in the day.
Nope.
So anyway, I went to this museum and I learned all about those buildings, how they were used for essentially everything. Because remember the CCC and like all kinds of other government agencies, they all just took the same blueprint and just used that same building everywhere.
Freaking crap buildings or Quonset huts or whatever. They use something. I went to Fort Pickett
That's
while I
cool.
was in Fort Pickett in Blackstone, Virginia, and I went there while I was in a football player in high school. We actually went to train. They took us to Fort Pickett on a military base, and our coach ran us through drills and exercises every morning, waking up first thing in the morning, running in formation, doing drills all day long on the football field there. And it was just to take you away from your home. So we were there for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. That's a good idea.
And that's a long time as a kid. You know what I mean? I'm in high school. I'm in 11th grade or 10th grade.
Yeah,
And
that's got to
we
be
ran through
fun
that.
and shit for the team then too. Like all being in that circumstance together.
Just bonds you up. You become
Yeah.
tighter. And it was great. So I just looked it up. Man, you know you're gonna know when they've changed the name. It's no longer Fort Pickett. It's now Fort Barfoot. I'm like, Jiminy freaking crickets. Does everything have to make me feel effing old? It's like that
The
thing's
good
been
news is
Fort
at some
Pickett.
point we're gonna start forgetting the stuff that makes us old. So we got that going
Yeah,
for
yeah, great. It's like, man, they've changed the name. Like Fort Benning is no longer Fort Benning. Like
it.
they've
Yeah, that
changed
one
that
I've
name.
heard. Yeah.
Fort Freedom or Camp Freedom or some bull crap. And hey, look, I have no problem, but we're the ones, that allowed these people to get away with naming military bases after the losers of the Civil War. And now you're embarrassed by it. But hey, whatever. It was great being on the show, man. Thank you for having me on. I missed this thing. Us just
Yeah.
talking and you
Sorry.
guys hanging out in the chats, guys and ladies.
It was worth the what's the absence, I guess. I was making a bunch of money for paying off the taxes and stuff. So appreciate everybody's patience with it there, but it should be back on track here for a bit. Well, till in the near future. There wasn't a question from Plain Nut saying, did they have you do any search and rescue stuff in Civil Air Patrol? Where I grew up, it wasn't really possible because it was just too populated. If somebody would have crashed, they would have crashed into somebody's house or yard. So it wasn't like on our priority list. We did a lot of like radio stuff, and we did mostly radio stuff instead of search and rescue. And if essentially set up instead of search and rescue, I guess emergency stuff. So we would go out and set up and be like the assistants to people who were getting stuff done, but we never trained to get anything done. As soon as I moved out here to Arizona, I was still young enough to be potentially like an adult. Well, I guess anybody can be an adult in Civil Air Patrol, but I was still like aware of Civil Air Patrol enough to pay attention. And I looked around and they like really did real, like they actually participated in searches out here. Cause you can imagine in the middle of nowhere, somebody crashes, they need all hands on deck. So they get all kinds of like, so we did, and I say we did nothing. We probably did do like one thing a year, like some kind of lame practice drill that like 8 squadrons participated in. But out here, like they don't need practice because they're doing it for real. So Civil Air Patrol is super neat. I guess I could have thought about it back in the day, but what could I have done? I lived where I lived. But they definitely like are regional, like whatever. We happen to be by a bunch of big airports, so we did a lot of flights on Air Force planes. Somebody who wasn't near a big airport would have not been able to do that, and I knew that was a difference, right? So obviously somebody by the water was probably doing all kinds of water rescue or reconnaissance or something, like that we just didn't have that option. But anyway, yeah. And then the other thing is we had military vehicles. The adults that ran it, were they just happened to own a bunch, like an ambulance and a bunch of deuce and a halves and a 5-ton. So we just
That had
had
to
all
be
these
cool.
vehicles, and they let us drive them. They let us drive them all the time, and so it was awesome. We just had a lot of fun. Like say, we would drive out and set up a giant mash tent with all the radios and stuff, and then run
You
around
know,
and play army. Essentially,
you
we
know
just
what's
had
great? It's because we grew up when we grew up and we had things like G.I. Joe and even the old TV shows like Combat Rat Patrol. that being in the military had us geeked up. I'm sitting here like jealous because I couldn't be in Civil Air Patrol, but I did join Junior ROTC immediately. And like anything I could do to be there, any extracurricular activities because it was military associated. So I just have to laugh because they've tried to remove all of that from schools, and then they wonder how they're having a recruitment problem in the military. I'm like, because you've created it. You've created it by not celebrating uh, the martial aspect of American culture. You've
Right.
demonized it. You've made it bad. You've gotten rid of it all. I'm like, that's why we end up here. Like, you got rid of all the cool toys. You know what I mean? G.I. Joe didn't have guns that look like guns anymore. You got rid of all the military shows and made them thinking dramas instead of just shoot 'em ups and having fun. It's like,
Right.
nah,
Well, we got
you've
15
killed it.
minutes till the top of the hour. So if you're game, I'm going to
Yep,
throw a question out there. We got a bunch of people
go
watching,
ahead.
and since we're over in this neck of the woods, I'm going to take it, just throw a different one out there. Because I'm not sure how I would answer this one yet. I'm going to listen to your answer, and then I'll see if I can even throw anything out there other than the question. But I've been listening to Team House, and that one guy on there is the guy who's the Green Beret on Team House, Jack something.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, he's pretty liberal, and he says some weird liberalish type of shit sometimes, and I'm like, what? Because he's not pro 2A like I am, like like
Hmm.
you are, like he's a different type of pro 2A, which I but everybody's allowed to be their own way 2A, right? But and he's seen some shit that I can't even imagine, so he can have whatever opinions he wants. They're just different than mine. So, but that is the guy that I'm thinking of when I ask this one. Because he's so open-minded, and I don't think it's in like a fantasy way. I think he's just open-minded. I consider it open-minded in his Jack Carr, thanks. Open-minded in kind of a pragmatic way. Anyway, here's my question. Yes, I don't disagree with you that even when we were in, like, we wore gym shoes, and I thought I was weak. Like, what the fuck? I expected to be running in boots. Like, what am I going to
Hmm.
take my boots off in the war? Like, what the fuck am I running around in gym shoes for, right? And I had to bring my
Hmm.
own gym shoes. That's what bothered me. I'm like, I don't know nothing about gym shoes. Like, I buy whatever the minimum is for school, and then I wear boots
Hmm.
all the time. And then they're like, bring your own gym shoes. So I went and bought shitty gym shoes because I don't know shit about gym shoes. And we called them gym shoes back in the day. And aside from like, British Knights or Nike or whatever, like, I didn't know if you're supposed to buy running shoes or any of that. And I didn't bother to find out either. So I just bought whatever and then destroyed my feet,
Uh-huh.
essentially, because the shoes were shitty. But anyway,
Yep.
but still, we were wimpy compared to everybody else who ever went through basic ever in their boots, doing all the running and everything else in their boots. And here's the other thing: if you don't have to run around and do PT in your boots, then your boots look freaking awesome all the time. So we didn't even have to hardly polish our boots because we're wearing shoes anytime we felt like it. It was like total easy route of going through basic, and it shouldn't be easy, right? Anyway,
Hmm.
that said, so every generation is going to go. They got it easy. So with trying to factor that out, because that's hard to factor out. Yes, I agree with you that we have less to choose from, but our generation was big and fat and lazy compared to the generations before, just because of food and TV or whatever,
Hmm.
right? Movies and snack foods. But I guess the question I'm still getting to is, will or won't the military turn them into what the military turns people into? Isn't that the whole point? It's like the meat grinder. You come out a soldier at the other end. You come out a troop at the other end.
Well,
I'll shut up
the
because
the
you had
problem is
a
not what's
question.
coming out on the other end. The problem is what's getting in on the front end, and people aren't showing up for it because they've killed that culture. It's not so much because the military. You can say what you want, but we've found smarter ways to train people with doing less damage to them. Running in boots didn't make you tough. You don't have to practice being uncomfortable. You know what I mean? You can get your stamina up and become a good runner in sneakers. And when you have to haul ass in boots, you can make that adjustment. You don't have to beat yourself up with boots for 6, 8 months
Right.
and ruin your freaking legs and knees. So no, I think the military training itself is fine. It's the fact that we've killed the culture of joining the military and being that person that sees the world, that gets out from your hometown or your home area and goes somewhere else, and you're no longer, you know, Jake Smith's son. You're your own person because you're in California now. You know what I mean? In that small town, wherever the hell you're from, And also you learned a skill and you're doing some cool stuff. Or yeah, you're going overseas and you're doing cool stuff with the skill you learn and meeting friends and getting drunk and having bar fights in third world countries and just all the cool stuff. You've taken even the stories away because you no longer, what do you call it? You don't have a draft, and the percentage of people that actually join the military is just so small. And you made it look like something negative. I read a lot of the comments. They're like, "Oh, you sold your soul to Uncle Sam." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, bro, but you work for the post office. You did too."
You
It's like,
technically do because you're not allowed to get sued. Wait, you can't. You technically do lose citizenship or something technically when you're a soldier, but oh well, like that's why you do it. That's the
yeah,
significance of it.
yeah, you're under a different justice system and everything else when you're in the military. UMCMJ is totally different than regular court. And yeah, we did some stupid stuff like in the Corps. Yeah, we wore boots all the time. You know what I mean? But if we went on actual formation runs and stuff like that, sometimes we did change into go fasters. We we didn't call them sneakers because Marine Corps. Um, it just doesn't even make sense. We called them go fasters, and they provided them for us because people would do what you did. I mean, you know. So we had a CX. I think that's how to say it because I'd never even heard of them. I grew up with, like you said, man, Converse and the least expensive sneakers you could buy. I remember once I had a pair of Nikes as a kid, like once. I think it was my senior year. I was really proud of them. That was the first pair of leather, white on white shoes I ever had. And I remember cleaning them right out of the box, brand new. And I stepped out of the house first day of school, and my dog ran up to me and stepped right on the ends of both shoes with red clay mud in the shoes and never came out.
No.
I didn't get off the front steps of my house with my shoes. And that taught me a lesson, man. I've never been picky outside of the military making me shine them. I've never been picky about my shoes and how clean they are since I put so much into them that day and I didn't make it two steps out of my home.
Yeah, I only ever bought one, or bothered people to buy me one nice pair of shoes. I can't remember what brand I liked or whatever, but essentially same thing. Like this was a waste of time. Waste all this time, favors, and money and effort to try to get these shoes, and then just like all shoes, they eventually just turn into whatever you're
Shoes.
wearing into puddles and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So that my wife makes fun of me. She was like, "What kind of black guy doesn't have like really cool sneakers?" I'm like, "Me." If that's the stereotype you're looking for, you married the wrong dude.
But I hear what you're
Plus,
saying. I think that if we had something, and maybe that's what they tried to do with some of this foreign bullshit, is try to get people some patriotism. Obviously, it didn't work; it backfired, if anything. But
hmm
without getting into all that, um, if there was something that called people in, I think what we'd end up with is, honestly, that makes you. If you, I was just going to say, we would end up with a bunch of, hey, don't do that. We get kicked off. They
Oh,
kick
fuck.
off alive doing that.
Woo.
They what do you call it? They when 9/11 happened, it brought a bunch of people in to the military.
hmm
But like you're saying, they I don't want to say there was, if you were in shape when 9/11 happened, then good to go. If you weren't, you could probably still enlist as long as you weren't outside the parameters, and
hmm
get in and get yourself in shape. But then certainly anybody after, they could have started working towards getting in shape, and then so it's not quite what you're talking about now, where physically people aren't ready, and then
hmm
mentally or whatever, not motivationally, people aren't there. Like they don't see the reason. But I guess what I'm getting at is I think the machine is still effective if there was a motivation that got people to join. But yeah, I have no idea what that might be, or if we need it, or any of that stuff. But I definitely see what you're saying. I guess I was asking a question different than what you were kind of talking about, the motivation. I was thinking more of like,
No.
that it's sort of like, the theory's there. All we need is, or not the theory, but the training is there. All we need is people to go through it. But you're right. Like, they're not motivated to sign up and do it.
Mm-mm. And I mean, I'm not pooping on anybody. I totally understand. My mom didn't want me to join because she was Vietnam era and felt that, as a lot of African Americans did, that when black kids joined the military, they put them on the front line. They didn't give them the training they needed, and they put them on the front line just to be bodies. I mean, because it's generational. It's what they've been told. It's the stories they've heard when they came back. People came back. Well, I joined in '89, '88, excuse me. Actually, I signed up in '87, but I left in '88, and it was different then. I went there to be a computer programmer. I mean, that's what I signed up for. So my chances of being in combat were slim to none. Actually, none.
None to none at that time, right? And then it turned out the only thing that even came close lasted, what, 48 hours or something?
Well, that was the thing. It was the buildup. Now, when I got stationed in Japan first, right out of boot camp, but uh, so I was in Japan already when the Gulf War broke out. The guys from my next duty station actually went on a ship because we had to support, obviously, the aircraft, and they were in Kuwait, or not in Kuwait. They were in the docks. I forgot where. The ship dock. They worked off the ship, but they had to actually physically guard the ship. And one of my coworkers, one of my fellow Marines, almost blasted a civilian contractor that went out, got drunk, and refused to show his ID coming back on the ship. So that was as close as any of us computer operators got to using a firearm. And also, they had the Scud missiles and the gas attacks that they thought were going to happen. So everybody was walking around in mop level 4. So yeah, so the Gulf War happened while I was in. Panama happened while I was in. And as a young Marine, you got frustrated because it's like, wait a minute, 2 damn wars got kicked off. I mean, you know what I mean? Two military actions kicked off, and I was nowhere near either one of them.
Well, and we'd seen things go from World War to, what do they call it, police action to another police action, and then like 48 hours, 3 days. We expected wars we expected not wars, but anything with military involvement to be hours long. We figured with our
Yeah,
superiority, we were just going to be just the tip of the spear, got to ever touch anything.
yeah, Grenada.
Or that
We went to
it would be
Grenada.
that way going forward is what we anticipated, or what was sort of I don't know, the
because
perception.
because as we were in, I mean, I joined again in '87. I went to boot camp in '88, and the entire world changed by 1990. Like the Soviet Union fell apart. Warsaw Pact was no more. We won the Cold War. Now, what do we do? Well, we have things that lasted days or hours. We went to Haiti, and then we left Haiti. We went to Panama, and Panama was over. We went to, it's like, well, frick, is this what it's going to be like? So I got the hell out. Kind of glad I
And
did.
the day to day was drug war stuff, so it looked like endless. Let's figure out ways to employ different units to be advisors to do drug war stuff.
Uh
So it
huh.
was either that or facilitating that or supporting that. So that was the anyway the I could say the perception of what the future would have been. But no one knew
Yep.
that 2000 that would all change pretty abruptly. But that was essentially what the 90s were like.
Outcast talk about how they change your plans. Uh, I was a computer program 100%, and then the Gulf War happened, and I tried to volunteer. I volunteered for nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare unit. Man, was I stupid. I wanted to get in on that war, baby. Until about 3 hours after that intro video they made us watch, and then I wanted to get the hell out of that room.
I was gonna
Oh
say
man.
I don't know. Gas biological
Uh-huh.
agents are horrible, horrible things. And they make you watch.
Um,
I don't even need to watch a horror movie. Like I don't need to watch a
no,
horror. There's nothing I
no.
could ever imagine some dumb guy with a wax or with some kind of CGI is going to come up with that I haven't seen
No.
already from biological stuff.
Biological and chemical agents. And I sat there with my mouth open, staring at the screen. And well before there was any Morgan Freeman voiceover, there was a Morgan Freeman voiceover. And this is when Tony knew he effed up.
I can remember as we're talking about this, since we're reminiscing, having more of a mindset of I'm going to make sure I've got the antidote wipes. Make sure I've got those like just when you're 16 and dumbass, like as long as I got my antidote wipes, I don't care about this. I'll be all right. I just need to wipe that
I'll be
antidote
good.
and I'll put my mask on and I'll just keep fighting.
I'll be there. They'll never get me. Not the kid. Okay. Yeah, just put on the red shirt, cuz.
Yeah,
Put on the
that's
red shirt.
me.
You're on the away team, homie.
Anyway, we got dire before and then we got super dire, so we're leaving it.
Yep,
But I
we're
appreciate
done.
everyone sticking around. That was a clean 2 hours approximately. Coming back, and we'll come back next week. I'll double check the database, make sure if there is a question, we'll address it for people that might actually be using the website out there. But thanks to Woods for dropping questions. That's much appreciated. So we have something to kind of get our riffs started with. And when's your next diversity shoot? Why don't you take us out with what's coming up?
All right, no problem. Next diversity shoot is Thursday, May 9th, Union Hill Gun Club. Can't wait to be there. You can go on Eventbrite under Tony Simon, purchase tickets. You can follow me on X under Second is for Everyone, Second for Everyone. You can follow me on damn, brain fart. You can follow me on Facebook on The Second is for Everyone or Tony Simon or Simon Says Train. There's links on all three pages to join us at Union Hill Gun Club on May 9th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. $20. We're going to eat food. We got pizza coming. We're going to shoot guns, and we're going to talk about the Second Amendment and how you can join the fight. And we welcome all people, regardless of race, religion, gender, socioeconomic status, or political background, because this is a human right that's not going to be saved by one group of people. It's going to take all of we, the people, to win this fight. And I can't wait to see you. You can also listen to me on Firearms Radio Network every Tuesday here on YouTube at Gun and Gear Review Podcast channel. Also, the Second is for Everyone podcast, 2A4E on your favorite podcast app. So I do some stuff.
Right on. Thanks for doing what you do. We'll be back next Tuesday or next Saturday. There we go. See you, everybody.